Good evening, everyone. I can see that we have quite a group tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight. And let me introduce myself. My name is Jorge Tamayo. I will be moderating this webinar. And tonight, I want to talk about facilitating effective meetings. When I say facilitating effective meetings, I'm not referring to key expressions only. This webinar is not about expressions. This webinar is about the whole process of facilitating meetings. So, of course, we're going to talk about expressions. But as you can see on our agenda, it's going to be the very last point. Okay? But what I really want us to do here, I want us to ask ourselves as facilitators, as meeting participants, the following questions. Okay? First of all, we're going to ask ourselves why we should call a meeting. Then we'll be answering the question of who we should invite to the meeting. After we do that, we'll be asking ourselves a very important question, the one that has to do with process. What process should we follow? What process should we implement in our meeting? And this is a central question. We'll get to that in a minute. Once we reflect about that, we're going to ask ourselves what is expected from us as facilitators. All right? And lastly, we'll get to those key expressions that you'll get to use in your presentations and meetings, of course. Okay? But first, let's start with the, I don't want to say philosophical question, but kind of. Let's start with the question of why we should call a meeting, right? Why a meeting? Why not an email, you know? Why do we have to allocate time, not only from our agenda, but from our colleagues' agendas in order to have a meeting? Is it the most productive way of using our time? You know? So by now, I'm sure that all of you, you're thinking, well, you know, maybe it's not the most productive. Maybe not all of our meetings should take place in the first place, right? And you're right. There are a lot of meetings that we have and we shouldn't have, you know? I am not particularly a fan of having meetings with the whole staff, with the whole team. I don't like that. I don't like that because most of those meetings are not productive. I kind of hear, I can hear you guys saying, oh yeah, I remember that meeting in which I turned off my camera and I started to multitask and I started to cook and I started to send emails and I started to do other things. Well, that is a central problem with our meetings. I don't want to say most, but a lot of our meetings shouldn't take place. They are a waste of time. We're wasting a lot of time in meetings, right? So let's identify the chief causes that could justify a meeting, right? So what could justify holding a meeting, right? Of course, if we are to be together in a group of people, one of the advantages of being together is creativity, right? So certainly, if you're looking for idea generation, if you want to solve a problem creatively, then yeah, by all means, have a meeting. And that's going to be a brainstorming meeting. That's one possibility, right? Brainstorming meetings. Those are fantastic. Okay? We'll come to that in a minute. Now, some other meetings are about decisions. We need to take a decision, right? And we need to be together to take that decision. Okay, perfect. Let's have a meeting, right? Brainstorming meetings, decision-making meetings, those are good, right? All right, so coming back to what we were saying, brainstorming sessions, decision-making meetings, those are fantastic, right? But then we have information meetings, right? Those meetings in which the purpose is to share information. Yeah, not sure about those, right? I wanted to think about them. I wanted to think about the last meetings that you have had in which the purpose was to share information. Okay. I wanted to think about that. And I wanted to be honest with yourself. Were those meetings worth it? Was the purpose of sharing information achieved in the most efficient way? Did you utilize your time the way you would have wanted to? Maybe not, right? So, to all of the managers here in this group, please, pretty please, stop it. Stop having those meetings in which the purpose is to share information. They are a waste of time. You're wasting your time and you're wasting everyone else's time. Please don't do that, right? So that's like the first part, right? Why should we call a meeting? Creativity and decisions. That would be my answer, right? Creativity, decisions, right? So, of course, you might be thinking, well, yeah, but there are other situations in which a meeting is very useful and all that. And yeah, sure. If it works for you, you do you. But bear that in mind. You're using everyone else's time. And that's of the essence here, right? Now, talking about that, let's move on to our second question. Who should we invite, right? Who should we invite? So when we are scheduling a meeting, right, we are in front of our team's calendar. We have selected a day and a time. And now we are about to click on the different emails of people that we want to invite, right? At this point of the process, I want you to ask yourselves, why am I inviting this person, right? Am I inviting this person because I feel that maybe that person could say something during the meeting? Or do I have a clear purpose when inviting that person? Right? I bet you have all received invitations for meetings, the purpose of which is unclear for you, right? I bet you have all said to yourself, but why am I invited to this meeting, right? And that is something that we need to change. If you want to have an effective meeting, you have to change that. You have to make sure that all of your participants have a clear goal in the meeting. And that, of course, implies putting yourself in their shoes and getting to know the process very well before calling a meeting, right? We need to do this. We have to do this, right? Otherwise, it's not going to be productive, at least for some of your participants, right? Okay, so that's who we should invite, right? But then we get to the point of the process, right? And I'm sure that everyone here is a big fan of Microsoft Power, right? I'm sure that you all love preparing fantastic presentations. I'm sure you all love coming up with this nice, beautiful slides and showing them to your colleagues, right? And it's one possibility. But is there another way around this, right? Are there other options? Yes, yes, there are. And I want to share a very short video in which Jeff Bezos, the founder and owner of most of Amazon, explains the process of meetings at Amazon. You're going to see that the meetings over there are very different, radically different to the kind of meetings that you probably have in your companies. And I want you to pay attention to the process, okay? Because we're going to analyze that process, okay? So let's watch this excerpt of this interview to Jeff Bezos. And after that, we're going to analyze the process of meetings at Amazon, okay? Let me share this video with you guys.
Traditional kind of corporate meeting is somebody gets up in front of the room and presents, let's say, a PowerPoint presentation or some kind of slideshow. And in our view, that is a very you get very little information that way. You get bullet points. It's kind of easy for the presenter, but difficult for the audience. And so instead, what we do is all of our meetings are structured around a 6-page narrative memo. And when you have to write your ideas out in complete sentences and complete paragraphs, it forces a deeper clarity of thinking.
Subject, verb, predicate, and all
yes,
that.
Exactly. Yeah, there really is something to that.
Too few people know that these days.
Yes, and so what we do is we just sit and some people say, well, why don't you read the memos in advance? Well, part of the problem there is that time to read them in advance doesn't materialize out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so this way, everybody has the time because we're all sitting around the table reading simultaneously. Everybody has actually read the memo. The author, who's put a tremendous amount of work into writing the memo, gets the nice warm feeling of seeing everybody read it. So they know they're actually, it hasn't been a waste of time. It is getting read.
It's being read.
It is actually being read. And there's another nice thing about this approach too. If you have a kind of a traditional PowerPoint presentation, sometimes executives are very good at interrupting, and so the person will get halfway into their presentation, and then some executive will interrupt the conversation, and that question that the executive asked probably was going to be answered 5 slides in.
Yeah.
And so if you read the whole 6-page memo, it often happens to me, I get to page 2 and I have a question I jotted in the margin, and by the time I get to page 4, the question has been answered, so I can just cross it off, and it saves a lot of time.
That is the process that they have at Amazon. As you may have heard, it's something very different, right? No PowerPoint, no slides, none of that. Instead of that, they have a memo, a more or less 6-page long memo, right? And in that memo, the author explains the situation. It narrates the situation just like a story. It's storytelling put into practice, right? They get together. They all take their time to read the memo in the meeting room, and then they discuss. That is the process of Amazon. Now, of course, this is very different. And you might be wondering, could this work in my company? Could we do the same with my team? Right? I don't know. You guys should ask yourself that question. You know your team better than I do. And you know better if this could work in your teams or not, right? However, in order to encourage you to change the process of meetings, I want you to think about the advantages of this method that is used in Amazon, okay? Think about the advantages, right? Start making a list. What could be the advantages of having a memo, reading it in a meeting room, and then discussing the memo? What could be the advantages? At this point, if you guys want to raise your hand and share your ideas, it would be fantastic. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think about it. And if you want to share an idea, by all means, raise your hand and go for it, okay? What could be the advantages of reading a memo all together in a meeting room and then discussing it?
Save time and make more efficient the meeting.
It makes the meeting more efficient. I agree. Now, could you tell me your name, sir, please?
Carlos, this is Carlos.
Carlos. All right, Carlos, why do you think the process will be more efficient?
Because most of all the people can read in advance and they can understand the points they will discuss in the meeting. So in theory, most of the people may understand what's going on, they will have to, I don't know, make decisions or discuss about it.
You are highlighting a very important point, Carlos. The fact that most executives are smart means that most of them will do very little sometimes, right? Because they're busy. They don't have time to read everything, right? And that means that in a lot of meetings, your participants are not very well acquainted with the topic, right? They might have heard something. They might have connected experiences that could allow them to participate in the meeting, but they might not be very knowledgeable in that specific situation, right? That is one of the advantages of having this memo, this long memo, and reading it and then discussing it in a meeting. That's one of the advantages. Fully agree with you on that, Carlos. Does anyone else have a different idea on why this method could be better than traditional approaches to meeting? Any other idea? What could be another advantage of reading the memo and then discussing it? Think about this. When you participate in a regular meeting, yeah, Miguel, you have there a comment there?
Yeah. I think one of the advantages could be like it's gonna be like a mental map, like don't lose the idea that I want to say, what I want to communicate. It's like I think it's important to get some notes to keep the speech.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that memo is going to be a mental map for all the participants, right, Miguel?
Right.
That's absolutely right. And I want to connect what you said with another very human process. The thing is, guys, that our brains are not designed for graphs. We don't process the information in tables, graphs, charts, the same way that we process stories, you know? Our brains are very good at keeping up with stories. That's why we love books. That's why we love movies. That's why we love gossip. We love to tell stories and we love to listen to stories, right? But I bet that no one here is going to raise his or her hand and say, oh God, I love reading charts, right? Or, oh dear Lord, I love graphs. I'm pretty sure no one is going to say that here. But I'll give you the chance. Does anyone here think that graphs, charts, and tables are the best? Loves reading them? No, right? On the other hand, stories are powerful. And in those memos, what you have is a story of the situation, a story that we can process, that we can interiorize and digest much better than charts and raw data, right? That is the power of this technique that they use at Amazon. Now, again, I'm not saying that that is the only way to go. I'm not saying that this method will work wonders in your company. You know, it depends on every organization. But that's an idea. There are some things there that you could implement as a facilitator of the meeting in order to make your meeting more efficient, right? Just food for thought, right? Now, there's something else. We mentioned in a previous question that one of the best ideas for calling a meeting is to foster creativity, right? And that means having brainstorming sessions, right? Now, brainstorming sessions have a very special process. It's kind of like composing music or something, you know? It has to enable creativity. It has to maximize creativity. The process is going to be like that, right? Stewart was in a bus. He had to leave. Well, what a shame. Okay, but anyhow, to facilitate brainstorming meetings, I suggest the following process, and this is a process that has been tried and tested. It has two different stages. First, you have idea generation. That is, get as many ideas as you can, right? Let's say that we want to know how to, or what to do with a box of watches. We have a box of watches. What are we going to do? Let's generate ideas, as many as we can, okay? Now, at this point, you want to foster creativity. You don't want to limit your participants. Every idea is welcome, okay? And a lot of authors recommend that participants shouldn't react at this point, right? That is, if you love someone's idea, you shouldn't say, oh, I love that idea. Not at this point, okay? At this point of the brainstorming session, please tell your participants not to react to ideas, okay? So you're just going to write down the ideas on a whiteboard and no one is going to share any opinion, okay? Once you have maximized the amount of ideas, then you can move on to the second stage. And the second stage of your process is screening those ideas. That is, analyzing which of those ideas would work best, okay? So at this point, you're free to share opinions. You can tell your participants that they have to share their opinions, right? And one tip there is to ask them what they like about every idea, okay? By asking them what they like about every idea, you're going to generate that opportunity for them to build on other participants' ideas, right? So that's like the process for a brainstorming session, okay? All right, awesome. So we saw two processes, one for decision-making meetings, one for brainstorming sessions, and of course, you know, the traditional process with PowerPoint, right? That would answer our third question, which was about the process that we should follow, right? Now, let's take a look at question 4. What is expected from the facilitator? And here, again, I want to give you guys a chance to share your opinion. So the facilitator is the person leading the meeting, right? In today's webinar, I am the facilitator, right? But the question is, what do you think participants expect from the facilitator? Raise your hands, share your thoughts. What do you think a facilitator should do?
I think a facilitator should point out the topics that they will talk, the objectives they need to achieve, and finally the decisions they have to make, I think.
Perfect, yes. So the facilitator should be aligned with the purpose of the meeting, with the goals of the meeting, as you said, Carlos. And he should remind all the participants that we're heading that way, right? We have a goal, we have a purpose, and we have to achieve it, right? Fully agree with you on that, Carlos. That's one of the goals, one of the things that are expected from the facilitator. Being able to guide the participants towards the goal, right? I agree with that. Now, what else do we expect from a good facilitator? Other than guiding the group towards the goal, what else do we expect from a good facilitator?
Promote the participation or all the members. Keep the order,
Absolutely.
maybe.
Okay, so you mentioned two different responsibilities that are both very important, Miguel. You're right. Promote active participation from all participants and making sure to keep the meeting organized and like wholesome for everyone, right? We don't want people talking over others, right? We don't want weird noises or disturbing things, right? And yes, that's part of what the facilitator has to do. Fully agree with you on that, Miguel. Yes. Now, what else is expected? Does anyone else have something to add there? Any idea? I have a question for you. Do we expect a solution from the facilitator? That is, do we expect the facilitator to provide answers and solutions to achieve the purpose of the meeting? What do you think? Is that what we expect?
I don't think so.
Why not,
I
Miguel?
think because as a facilitator, he's responsible to guide us, not to active to participate to an active participating in the solution. It's just I think is he should be just like the guy who is guiding the others to try to achieve the goal.
So what
I
you're
don't know if I'm.
saying, let me rephrase that. What you're saying is that the facilitator should be there to moderate the talk, but shouldn't intervene in the process of the meeting, like in the decision-making process of the meeting. Is that it, Miguel?
Yes, you could explain it better than me. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So while that might be true in a lot of meetings, think about these big meetings with shareholders, right? Think about public companies, companies that are listed in the stock market, like Intercorp or something like that. They will have a big meeting with all the shareholders, right? And in those meetings, you're going to have different roles. One of them will be the facilitator. And it is true that the facilitator in those meetings will usually not intervene in the decision-making process, right? The facilitator will be there to focus on the formal process itself, on the advancement of the meeting, but he or she will not take part in the solution. That's absolutely true, Miguel. However, in smaller meetings or smaller organizations, the facilitator has more than just one role, right? And it's also going to be an active participant in the meeting. But what I like about Miguel's comment is that he reminded us of something very important. The role of facilitator has to do with the formal process. You could see this as, let's say, the judge, right? The judge will focus on keeping the process moving, but the judge will not bring arguments, right? Lawyers will, right? In that sense, facilitators are like judges, right? However, I do think that in most of our meetings, facilitators will have more than just that. They will have to share ideas, right? But not provide all the solutions, right? Now, here's the thing. As we have pointed out, facilitators are there to help the process, right? And that means being able to intervene in key moments, right? For different purposes. That takes us to our last point, the key expressions, right? Those expressions that will allow you as a facilitator to intervene in key moments of the meeting, okay? So we have a very, very, very long list of expressions, right? That I want to share with you guys over here, right? This is like a really long list of expressions, right? But let's take a look at some of those categories, probably the most important ones, right? Now, it was Carlos who mentioned that facilitators should encourage participation, right? And here we have some expressions for that, right? So I don't have my glasses here, but I see that Maria del Carmen has her glasses. Maria del Carmen, could you help me reading the first four expressions? Oh, you're muted. No, we can hear you. You're muted. So if you unmute your microphone, we're going to be able to hear you.
Que yo no hablo inglés.
Ah, okay. So my bad, Maria del Carmen. Thank you though. So in that case, I'm not saying Karen has glasses. I'm not saying she's wearing glasses right now. But Karen, can you help me out reading the first four expressions we have here?
Number 4.
Over here, number 1, read the first
one.
four expressions.
Okay. Number 1 is, what is your reaction to? I am really speak.
What is your reaction to? Go ahead, continue.
What is your reaction to? How do you feel about?
Mhm.
What is your thinking on? And what brings you to conclude that?
Thank you, Karen. Good job there. Okay, those are some expressions you could use to get those opinions from your participants, right? We have other 4 expressions for that. Jesus, would you be so kind and read those 4 expressions?
Do you want me to read them again?
The last 4 we have over here.
Okay. What are some other ways to get at? What prompted your decision to? How did you feel when you found out that? Would you say that?
There you go. Very good pronunciation, Jesus. Nice.
Thank you, sir.
You kind of have the voice of radio journalist, a radio anchor, you know?
Oh, people told me about that sometimes. It's due to the microphone I got actually.
Well, you know what? You should send your resume to RPP. You know?
Okay, I'll try eventually, my friend.
Good, good. All right, awesome.
Thank you.
We did have a journalist from RPP studying with us. What was his name? This guy who used to have this show about sports. I forgot. I forgot his name. He was the anchor of one of those shows about sports. Anyhow, so those are some expressions to get reactions, to get opinions, right? About ideas, about things that are being discussed in the meeting, right? Now, as a facilitator, it's also important to clarify, to make sure that everyone is on the same page, that ideas are understood. And to do that, you have to paraphrase, right? And here you have some expressions to paraphrase. Now, Miguel, why don't you help us with those expressions?
Sorry, could you repeat, please?
Yes, absolutely. Miguel, talking about paraphrasing, you know, what we did a couple of minutes ago. Could you read these expressions over here, Miguel, please?
Yeah, sure. First one, are you asking me to? Let me see if you understand your position. Are you saying that? I'm not sure I understand. Are you saying that? Before we go on, let me paraphrase what I think you are proposing. Let me restate your last point to see if I understand.
Last two.
What I'm hearing is that right? Before you go on, do you mean that?
There you go. Awesome. Thank you, Miguel. Very good. Now, here I want to raise awareness. I want to raise awareness about one common trap in which facilitators or people in general fall. When you paraphrase, there's one risk, and that is parroting, right? Now, what do I mean by parroting? If I were to say, I don't know, I think Peruvian food is better than French food. And I do think that actually, because I lived for 5 years in France, for 7 years in Peru. And I can absolutely tell you that Peruvian food is better than French food, hands down. So I could say that, right? Like, Peruvian food is better than French food, right? Okay. Now, if a facilitator were to clarify this, if a facilitator were to paraphrase this, one risk would be to come up with something like, so what you're saying is that, and then you copy paste, right? And you copy paste, right? So in this situation, are we really clarifying? What do you think, guys? Are we clarifying something here when we say, so what you're saying is that, and then we just repeat word for word what the other participants said? Is that a good idea?
It's the same, right?
I mean, yeah, it's the same. Like we're not doing anything by just
Yeah,
quoting, right?
yeah, yeah. Just repeating the same.
You're parroting. Exactly. Right. I think Lau wanted to share something there.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to share that you give them, well, you give the participants like a few seconds more to think about the opinion that that person shared with us before. Like you're given like a more thoughtful or deeper way to think about it. Like yes, it's a way to clarify for me. Like
Okay, so it is true that by repeating that statement, you will give the other participants some additional time to process. I do agree with you on that. However, if there is something that could be misunderstood, you won't be clarifying. Let me give you an example. I could instead, as a facilitator, say something like, so what you're saying is that Peruvian food is tastier than French food. Now, Lau, let me ask you this. Is this exactly the same idea than this?
mm, so what you're saying? Yes, I mean it's the same almost.
Almost, but not entirely. Because it's like, what do you mean by better? Is it
So what you're
tastier?
saying that definitely tastier than French food. Oh no, yes, it's more specific because you're talking about the flavor, like the taste. I mean, it's not like because it could be better because of I don't know that because it's more beautiful, like more looking appealing or something like that. But you were talking about the taste. Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. You see, that is the risk of parroting. That even though this seems like a super simple statement, Peruvian food is better than French food, but super simple statement.
It
But there,
sounds more polite.
okay, okay. In what sense does it sound more polite?
I mean, if you say, I don't know, some people's, I mean, people is different. Some people's are more sensitive about food because they are very proud of their gastronomy. As Peruvians, we are very proud of our gastronomy. French are too. So it could be a sensitive subject to talk about it. And I think when you say Peruvian food is tastier than French food, it sounds more polite,
That is
you know?
true. I mean, you are minimizing the risk of conflict to some extent,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
what I
true.
meant.
That's true, Miguel. That's true. And and you're also clarifying because this initial statement can be understood in very different ways, right? And even though it seems simple, you can see there that it has different shades in it, right? It has more than it seems to have, right? So it's always important as a facilitator to bring that clarity, to rephrase in a way that shares light, right? That's what we want to do as facilitators. We want to rephrase, reformulate ideas in a way that makes the conversation advance, right? Um, just so that everyone is on the same page here. Yes, I do mean that Peruvian food is tastier than French food. Hence, for all of you who are from Peru, you guys are lucky. Best food ever. Now, here's the thing. That is when it comes to paraphrase, right? Now, I also want us to take a look at some key expressions that a facilitator should use. And that is expressions to build consensus, because we have mentioned that one of the most important situations for meetings are decision-making processes, right? So here we have some expressions to test for consensus, okay? Which is something that we have to do as facilitators. Karen, I don't know if you could help me reading these 1, 2, 3 expressions. Could you help me with that, Karen?
Yes. Okay. Number 7, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Test of courses. It seems that we have come to an agreement on this issue. Let me ask for a show of hands on this. Does everyone accept the idea that feeling is that you're feeling too? Before we go on onto the next issue, let me check to make sure that all have agreed to.
That all have agreed to.
Agreed to.
Thank you, Karen. All right. And you see, this is a very useful expression, right? Let me ask for a show of hands, right? Everyone in favor of this, raise your hand, right? That's an important expression when building that consensus, right? So, of course, there are many more expressions, many more cases. This is a very broad topic. We could, spend the whole night talking about meetings, their process, the key expressions, highlighting, transitioning. We have very cool seminars about that, actually. So that's why I want to conclude in this way. My takeaway for you guys here is to rethink about the process, okay? You guys are agents of change. You can change the culture of your team. You can change the culture of your department. And believe it or not, you can change the culture of your company. You are agents of change. And what I want to do here, I want to extend an invitation to all of you to reflect on the time you spend in meetings, the process you follow in your meetings, and to suggest changes in your companies, okay? Because I think that we can be more efficient. I think that we need to be more efficient because artificial intelligence is there and it wants to take over, So we need to be better, all right? That's my invitation for you. And of course, my invitation for you is also to, take a look at our courses. We have very thorough courses about these topics. We have other fantastic topics as well. And I want to invite you to give us a ring, okay? So before we close this session, I just want to know if you guys have any question, any comment that you would like to share. You guys have any comment there? Could be a question, could be a comment. Yeah. All right, so in that case, I'm going to show
Teacher.
you. Yeah, Karen?
Teacher, yes. Thank you so much, really. In my case, I would like to learn, to know more speaking, more listening in English. Okay, because my level in this moment is intermediate level 2 in Católica. But I think, I feel that no, I don't. I don't understand listening to teachers when to talk. It's very important for me for advance it. The next level.
Absolutely. That is a very important part of the learning process, right?
Yes.
Getting like acquainted to different accents and feeling comfortable listening to people from different places, right? Yes, that is super important, Karen. You have fantastic resources online, you know, you have podcasts, you have a lot of YouTube videos, right? You have series. So my advice for you, Karen, increase the time you spend listening to the language, to English, okay? And I mean actively listening, you know, not just like driving in the very chaotic traffic of Lima and having a podcast there. I mean like focusing on what you're listening, okay? So so that's something that you could do aside from, of course, taking a course, right? But make sure to increase the time you connect with the language, okay?
Okay, teacher. Thank you so much for advices.
Awesome.
Very important for me.
Awesome. Thank you for your comments and participation, Karen. Now, does anyone else have any other comment?
I got something to say. I don't know by which mean we can get more information about Berlitz webinars. This was really interesting. I have never thought about this topic in this way, and I would really love to know more information about Berlitz webinars for the near future, Mr. Jorge.
Absolutely. Thank you for your comment, Jesus. That's very kind of you to say. So of course you can follow us on our social media pages. And for more information about, we have some pretty cool executive programs that are called BBCS. These are very interesting programs because it's not only about the language, but also about the soft skills and like the communication tools that are needed in a multicultural corporate world, right? So I would suggest you give us a call, right? Are you in Peru, Jesus?
Yes, I reside in Peru.
Okay, so in that case, you have the numbers over here. Give us a ring, send us a message, and we'll tell you about the different options that we have. We have very cool options, really.
Okay, I'll get in touch with them actually. Thank you so much, Mr.
Awesome.
Jorge.
Awesome. Thank you for your participation. Alrighty. So guys, I was really happy to have this fantastic group tonight. You all participated actively. You were
Jorge,
great.
disculpa,
Yes, Cecilia?
disculpa que te corte, pero estás compartiendo pantalla, no se te ve.
Ah. Sorry there. Okay, so really happy to meet you all. I hope to see you in another session. Hope to see you in class. And well, Cecilia, ¿hay algo que quieras añadir antes de que terminemos la sesión?
Sí, justo he dejado algunos links para que puedan conocer más sobre nuestros cursos, tanto.
Okay, awesome. So you have the links there on the chat, guys. And well, don't forget about this. You are agents of change, okay? So go out there, change the world, and meet me in class, okay? All right.
Thank you.
Awesome, guys. So have a fantastic night. See you around.
See you around. Thank you.
Mr.
Bye.